Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Where the 99 Leads. I'm Andrew Joyce, your host, and Where the 99 Leads is a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, where we discuss many different areas and topics surrounding the University of Pikeville, the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, the newly founded Kentucky College of Optometry, the Coleman College of Business, the Patton College of Education, of course, all of the undergraduate programs at the university, athletics, and post-graduation, we talk alumni at the University of Pikeville. Joined today by UPike Alumni Association President Tommy Chamberlain. Tommy, welcome in.
Hey, it's great to be back. It's good to be here, Andrew.
Tommy and I go way back, and prior to Tommy's days at then Pikeville College, believe it or not, as we sit here talking today, I can remember meeting Tommy prior to his college days.
That's right.
We've known each other a long time.
It has been quite a while. You umpired quite a bit of mini baseball games that I pitched.
Tommy Chamberlain. He was a solid right-hander that you knew you were going to get a good pitching performance every time out. Now association president of the Alumni Association at the University of Pikeville. And Tommy, for those that don't go way back with you, as I do, that maybe have not tuned into this program before, talk about your background, where you come from, and your history with the University of Pikeville.
Well, I grew up over at Kemper. I'm a Johns Creek High School boy.
There you go.
Pike Central now, I guess you would say. And came to Pikeville College then on a baseball and academic scholarship, and spent 4 years here to graduate, and actually came back for one more year to finish my baseball eligibility before I went on to law school. I chose to go to the University of Louisville, and at the completion of that in May of 2000, came back home to Pike County, been here ever since. Been with the Pike County Attorney's Office for going on 14 years this fall. So I'm currently, to our knowledge, the longest serving assistant county attorney in Pike County history that we know of.
Wow.
So I passed the longest we knew several years back. So I've been there quite a while, and it's always a great job to be a public servant and to work with the good people of Pike County.
Indeed, and many times that I'm at the courthouse, I'll see you around, as many people do. Now you can put a name with the face, Tommy Chamberlain, because thankfully I've never had a chance to encounter your work in the court system.
Yeah.
I've avoided that, and I'm a good boy, and but serving Pike County, thank you for that service, because it truly is public service. Tommy Chamberlain, UPike Alumni Association President. Today we talk about events that are coming to the University of Pikeville, and in particular, a museum exhibit of biblical proportions that's coming to Eastern Kentucky. Tommy, tell us about that.
Yeah, we have something we're really proud of and excited about. Next January, people all across Eastern Kentucky can come to Pikeville, and they're going to be able to visit a museum exhibit of about 200 artifacts from the ancient world. And they all come from a region of what we would call the Holy Land, the biblical area, and they're going to date anywhere from about 5,000 to 2,000 years old.
Wow.
So it's an exciting thing. And the thing I always use to describe this exhibit is usually you would expect to have to drive somewhere like Cincinnati, Columbus, Chicago to see something like this. And we're extremely proud that people from this community are going to be able to see it in their hometown, in their home community, instead of driving 4 hours to see something of this nature.
And things from the Holy Land, they're very well protected. You don't see these type of exhibits all the time, and it is a special occasion when we're able to see these close to home. How did this come about? How does the museum exhibit land here in Pikeville?
Well, I'm going to actually go back to something you said first, then answer that question. What's kind of neat about the artifacts we have, and part of them are actually the property of the government of the country of Israel. And we may be the last stop. We don't know yet. And what's exciting about those artifacts in particular is when they return to Israel, they may never come back to the U.S.
Wow.
So that's, that's exciting and that's proud. So now back to what you were saying.
Sure.
How does that happen in Pike County, Kentucky? Well, in a simple note, I'm a bit of an archaeology nerd.
Right.
And this is something I enjoy, I'm excited about. And I'm a member of several archaeology associations. Well, one particular group is called the Associates for Biblical Research, and they have an exhibit currently touring the U.S. from their archaeology site in Israel. About half a year ago, they put information out to all their members that our exhibit is touring. And if you know any universities that would be interested in hosting a biblical archaeology exhibit, we would like your information. So I immediately wrote, and my title is the alumni president of the University of Pikeville, and said, how about the University of Pikeville in Pikeville, Kentucky?
Sure.
And to be honest, I expected a very polite, no thank you, you're kind of small. And I got a response, and the response was, well, we're not sure.
Right.
Why don't you send us a proposal? And so we sent a very nice proposal saying, hey, this is why your exhibit should come to Eastern Kentucky.
Sure.
And we waited for time to pass, and an answer came, and they said, we like your ideas, and we're excited to have our artifacts go to Pikeville, Kentucky.
Very good.
So
it is exciting, and it truly is something that's very historic. You're a bit of an archaeologist nerd. I think many of us are, and there are biblical historians,
yep,
lay people
right,
from our region that are interested in biblical archaeology, in biblical history, and that make a once-in-a-lifetime trip to the Holy Land. There are many others that would love to be able to do that, but haven't been able to, and for whatever reason may never have an opportunity to do that. You've been able to take part in archaeological digs in the Holy Land, have you not?
I have. I actually led a tour group to Israel a couple of years ago, and one day while we were there, we volunteered on an archaeology project.
Sure.
And that project was the Temple Mount Sifting Project, where they go through earthworks that was removed from the Temple Mount, sifting for history,
Right.
discarded history. And what was exciting on a personal note was just that visit led to some contacts, and many people in our community got to see the head archaeologist of that exhibit from Jerusalem speak here in Pikeville last spring. So, you know, that kind of blossomed into a great thing for us.
Indeed, and I knew that story. And there was a group from Eastern Kentucky that was able to travel, and you get to see some amazing things in the Holy Land. Now, people in January of 2017 will have a chance to see some of those similar type things with the museum exhibit. As visitors travel to the University of Pikeville next January to see this exhibit, what are some of the things they'll see?
Well, when I was thinking about that, maybe the best way to answer is to take a short walk through in our mind's eye of what they're going to see. And it's going to be a walk through history. The title of our exhibit is Khirbet El-Maqater and a Journey Through Biblical History. So when they walk in, they're going to walk into the ticket booth, and they're going to walk into a Middle Eastern bazaar.
Right.
The souk, which is the Arabic word for bazaar. And they'll have their ticket. If they want to get something in the gift shop, great. And their first stop will be an intro video followed by a walkthrough into Byzantine history, where we'll have early Christian history, and we're hoping they're going to walk through an actual Byzantine archway hallway. And they will see artifacts from a monastery that was built at Khirbet El-Maqater. We actually have a few things there here early. And from there they'll proceed on and they'll walk through different areas. Some of the highlights, the next room they're going to walk into hopefully a cave from Qumran. And in this cave they're going to find 20 or 30 ancient oil lamps. And fragment replicas. These will be replicas of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Sure.
And from there we'll go to Rome. And in Rome you're going to see lots of objects from the time of Christ and the Roman Empire. 2,000-year-old things. We have a few here today. And then we'll continue on through biblical history at that point. From the time of Babylon to the kings of Judah and Israel, they will actually be able to see a seal impression from one of the kings of Judah.
Wow.
Yes, that is exciting. And you know, David and Solomon, and we'll go back to a site. Our main end will be from the late Bronze Age. And the name of our exhibit is Khirbet El-Maqater, which is a modern name. It means the ruins of Maqater, and it's excavated by one of our partners. And that partner, the Archaeology Dig in Israel, has identified that site. And it's a biblical site. In the Old Testament is the city of Ai, or the fortress of Ai. In the mountains, we like to call that Ai. And the best way to describe it is it's the place that the children of Israel conquered after Jericho. And so they've excavated the ruins there and found fascinating things, and we're going to end our exhibit where they will actually be able to see artifacts from the biblical city of Ai.
Very good. Talking with Tommy Chamberlain, University of Pikeville Alumni Association president. We talk of a biblical museum exhibit that will come to the University of Pikeville early next year. It's a year away. Make plans for this, as it is that big a deal. And we'll talk more about why we're talking about it at this time as the show goes. Talk about when the exhibit comes to Pikeville. You mentioned January 2017. Give us specifics.
Okay, well, what will happen in January of 2017 is we'll have an exhibit, and we're going to have it for at least 6 months. It will be hosted, thanks to the City of Pikeville, at the newly renovated York House.
Oh, wow.
Because we want a place that when you walk into the exhibit, you're going to walk from room to room, and as you walk from each room, as I just mentioned, you'll walk into a new period of history. Now, the current plan is that the exhibit will be open to the public on Fridays and Saturdays. We are considering Sunday afternoons. We have yet to figure that out, but also open to bookings and groups during the week by appointment.
Sure.
Because we want to bring school groups in, we know church groups will want to come in, maybe just large groups will want to come together and book a time they can have the exhibit privately. So that allows us, with a smaller group of volunteers running this, if we do it by appointment schedules during the week, that allows us to man it easily for the public on the weekend.
And somewhat of a limited schedule on a weekly basis, but there will be other times available besides Friday, Saturday, and possibly Sunday. But for 6 months' time, you will be able to get a lot of groups through there. And I think the key is, with an exhibit like this, I think people will want to spend time with the exhibit. This won't be a 30-minute rush through. You'll want to spend time with each of the sections of the exhibit as you are able to see history. And see history for some, the only time in our lives.
That's right. For many people, this will be the only opportunity to ever see artifacts of this nature. We live in an area that we're referred to as the Bible Belt,
right.
And so many people in our community know the biblical stories. And the question, when you think about it, and we think about those stories, we put an image in our head of what things look like. Well, maybe we have it right, maybe we don't, but here we'll better see artifacts that actually illuminate those stories, like some of the things we have here today. And you'll better see when you talk about Jesus drinking out of a cup at the Last Supper.
Sure.
What did that probably look like?
Right.
What did the different things, what were the visuals, what did things look like?
Exactly, because you hear, okay, the cup, and it's something that you may hear in church regularly. There are some churches that offer communion weekly, and you hear the story of the cup. Let's pray for the cup, what it represents, but how many people have actually seen a cup from that time.
That's right.
And now you'll be able to do that.
That's right. And since we're at that point, I want to skip to something. I want to put something in your hand, Andrew, right here. Grab a hold of this.
Careful.
Now, very careful. What you're handling is stone. That is Jerusalem limestone. It is 2,000 years old.
Wow.
It is a Roman era, as we would say it, cup from that area. This one is unfinished. If you looked inside, you notice there's no lathe work needs to be done. So this one probably wasn't used. Why do we have it, and why is it important? The head archaeologist of our project would tell you that if you were wanting to talk about the Holy Grail, what cup did Jesus drink out of the Last Supper?
Sure.
What did it look like? He would tell you, in short version, it probably wasn't pottery. They believed pottery became impure after a while at that time in history. So they almost certainly used stone. Now, that meal was a Passover meal, so you would use certain stoneware.
Sure.
What did those cups look like?
Right.
What in that region was being used? So he would tell you it is very reasonable and likely to believe that the cup that Jesus and his disciples drank out of at the Last Supper was something very similar to what you're holding.
Wow.
So
Made from limestone, and it is not terribly different than a cup you might have your coffee in today, except it's made from limestone, and obviously it's not machined, but this is someone has chiseled this stone into this shape. Handles on it's very heavy. It's very heavy, and you can see the markings where this cup has actually been worked with some type of tool, and this is 2,000 years old.
2,000 years old.
It's amazing, and a piece of history. And one would think differently of the cup after having hands on a 2,000-year-old cup from that era, and it's amazing. It makes me nervous to hold it. My hands were sweaty just holding something from that era, but much like the Holy Grail. Tommy Chamberlain, UPike Alumni Association president, our guest. We're talking about a museum exhibit coming to the University of Pikeville. What are some of the other items that we have?
We have a few things here today, and I always like to talk about one of these. Again, the best way to handle that and get an idea for what it is to hold it.
Right.
What Andrew is holding, I've been told by some, is the world's oldest baseball. Good guess.
Not bad.
Not bad, but it's not. But it brings a very famous biblical story to light. We often think of the story of David and Goliath, and we think of David as a little boy with a slingshot like we think of today with a pebble, and that was not what an ancient slinger was.
Right.
That sling would have been very long. He would have probably been a young teenager, and it would have been a very heavy stone, something larger like what you're holding.
This has got some weight to it.
Yep, that has. Just looking at it, it will surprise you when you pick up the weight to it. And that is a 2,800-year-old sling stone. And the scientists will tell us when they get the sling going, a good slinger, like David most likely was, would have released that at about 100 miles an hour, like a modern top fastball pitcher in the major leagues. So the way to illuminate that story is you imagine what you're holding hitting you in the head at 100 miles an hour, what it would do to you.
Sure. And it's got some weight. Solid rock, solid rock, and that would do some damage. So the story of David and Goliath, next time you hear the story and the slingshot and the stone, this is more what the stone would have been in David and Goliath, and that would do some damage. I don't care if you are a giant.
That's right. A few of the other things we have here. One, I always like this little item, just because I think it's so beautiful.
It is pretty.
It is a stone little vase. It's alabaster. And if we want to talk about a biblical story, we immediately think of the lady who anoints Jesus with the alabaster vase. We don't know what she had, what it looked like, but this is an example of what it would have been similar to.
Something that would have held precious oils, perfumes.
Very expensive. You'll notice the stopper is long gone, but that vase would have been incredibly expensive to make, so whatever it held would have been very precious, very expensive.
And you can see, I hope the camera gets a shot of this, just a beautiful, beautiful, and it's a vase. It's something that would hold liquid. It's much like you might see a perfume bottle today. It's very similar. It's hollowed out and very nice. And it's a beautiful, just piece of stone.
And that would be roughly
How old is
2,000 years old.
2,000
Life
years
of
old.
Christ.
Wow.
So, now our other items, really quick. This one is not the oldest, but still very old. That is around a 3,500-year-old little container. You will notice it has a good round full bottom and a very tiny opening. And why would that be? Well, that's not a water container. That would also be for something expensive and precious. It would have been made in Canaan, and it would have been used, sent to a place called Egypt. And I always talk about that at a time as it's going on caravans. It's also the time in history we hear of a young man named Joseph, who is getting packed off by his brothers to some traders and sent to Egypt. And we see goods at that same time taking that same trip. And we see this particular example, an idea of, again, something very precious, something expensive will be in it, because if it turns over, it's not going to spill out so easy because it's a very small opening.
This would have been currency in that day and time, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, trade.
Traded.
You got
for other things, and it has a very small hole. If you can see, it's a container with a very small, not something you would drink out of. This is not going to splash, and therefore that's why the hole's so small, so you could get a little of whatever the expensive item is at a time.
That's right.
How old's this?
This one is around 3,600 years old.
And it's gorgeous. I mean, it's just a beautiful piece of work.
We'll grab that bowl beside you there.
Yes.
Okay, this bowl is approximately 4,000 years old. It's stone. We see a beautiful little detail around it. And it's from a site called Bobit Dra. Now, what makes this particular bowl very interesting is what some archaeologists believe that site may be. Some archaeologists believe it's a site that is famous from the Old Testament called Sodom. Sodom is famous for being destroyed. We all know the Sodom and Gomorrah story. Now, I'm not going to tell anyone with certainty that this is from Sodom. We don't know.
Right.
But it is from that time period in a region, in a city that some believe was the site. But just, it's 4,000-year-old roughly their bowl, and from that time period and place is just fascinating.
And you mentioned the detail that is on this 4,000 years ago. This wasn't an everyday bowl, was it?
I wouldn't think so.
With this type of detail, I wouldn't think that it would be an everyday around. It seems like this would be used for a special occasion because of the intricate detail that's been carved into this stone here.
I don't think it's your morning cereal bowl.
I don't think so. But it's, again, very heavy. Very heavy.
And I saved our last piece for last on purpose.
Sure.
Probably the most innocuous looking thing here. It is just a broken jar handle. And the worst condition thing we have, it is 3,400 years old, but its location is what makes it special. That comes from the site of Khirbet el Maqader, and it dates to the late Bronze 1B period, which dates to the time of the conquest of Israel by the conquest of Canaan by the Israelite people. Well, what's fascinating about these particular pottery shards, which is what this is, they're found all over the site.
Sure.
And they all show evidence of one thing, what archaeologists call being refired. Well, you bake pottery initially, but then if it's subjected to intense heat later, it does something to it. The best way I can explain it is it makes it hard like stone.
Right.
And all of the pottery shards from that site, that time period, show this evidence of being refired. So what Dr. Scott Stripling of ABR says, Andrew, what you're holding in your hand is evidence of the burning of the city of Ai as recorded in the Bible in the book of Joshua, chapter 8.
Wow.
And
Go back and read.
and what's fascinating about these shards is that they sent us about 50 from the time of Joshua and 100 from the time of the life of Christ later on. The site would be called Ephraim at that time. My first thought was, well, these are neat things to show people, tell people. And the archaeologist told me the day I got them, no, Tommy, you're wrong. He said, we know you're doing something special in Eastern Kentucky for your community, and it's going to take funds for that to happen.
Sure.
So those pottery shards are for us, from us, for you to give to individuals that make donations to this project as a gift from the archaeology group in Israel.
And this is how old?
That is 3,400 years old.
3,400 years old. And you can see it has the shape of a handle. Wow. And you can go to Joshua and read this story of where this actually came from. It's incredible. And we're able to touch and feel history and a museum exhibit coming to the University of Pikeville, January 2017. And you talk about that, of course, sponsors. It's expensive. It's an expensive project to bring to the University of Pikeville. We'll talk more about that as we go, but the university, with this project, you have to form partnerships. Talk about those.
Well, what I would like to talk about is our most important partner. When we got this, we said, hey, this is a big deal for our community. It is more than just a University of Pikeville thing. This is an Eastern Kentucky thing. And we went to the city of Pikeville and said, here's what we've got. And they said, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
We want this to happen in our community. So they, at that time, pledged, they said, we want you to host it in the York House here in Pikeville. We're going to give you a place to put it where people can visit here on Main Street in Pikeville, the exhibit. And we have room so people can walk from room to room and room to see it. They also helped in that they're going to provide some display cases, things we need to lay a solid foundation to get this exhibit here for the people of this community.
Very good. And UPike archivist Edna Fugit, working behind the scenes. She is a historian, and I always get excited talking with Edna because she is able to take things from our local area, from the university, from then Pikeville College, from the community, from our region, and you can see the excitement as she tries to preserve those items. This is her kind of thing. Exactly. I can see Edna working with this. but she's working behind the scenes to get the exhibit up and running. Tell us about how having a local archivist involved in the project's helped so far.
Well, in many ways, but specifically when I talk to our partners from the archaeology group in Israel to the museum that's also partnered with us, to be able to say we have a certified archivist here working, it gives them a comfort level. Hey, that our stuff is going to be watched after. Someone knows how to take care of these things at the University of Pikeville. So it makes it easy for them to say, we want to partner with the University of Pikeville. And then on a real simple note, something of this magnitude is too much for one person.
Sure.
And we need great people helping make it happen. And Edna is a perfect example of one of the many people we need. And her work is great. And I'm just looking forward to turning her loose once we get the artifacts here and doing the design of the exhibit.
Tommy, you're passionate about this project.
Oh, yes.
Tell us why it's so important to you.
Well, there are many reasons. One has always been my faith. You know, I'm a Christian, and so this is something when we look at aspects of the Bible and stories from the Old or New Testament, to me it's something that speaks to me about my personal faith. But on top of that, I love history. I've had wonderful teachers and professors through the years that instilled a love of history for me. And for me, history is story, and it's true story. And so I'm excited to be able to bring for our community artifacts here, and it be something more than something 3,000 years old behind glass with a little sign. Sure. But our goal is to turn it into the story. Why is it important? For example, I guarantee you if I put a 2,000-year-old Roman cup in your hand like I did a minute ago, that's cool. Then I tell the rest of the story. It's something similar to maybe that Jesus himself used at the Last Supper. You can't beat the story there.
These type of items, which are just a small sampling, bring history to life.
That's right.
The stories that we know, that we've heard, that we believe, that we read about come to life when you touch a bowl from the time and place of Sodom, from the time of Christ and the type of cups that were used in Christ's time. History comes to life.
That's
and
right.
I think that's exciting for all of us. But certainly we do appreciate it. Some may ask, why announce the exhibit 10 months away? It's not coming till January 2017. Why is that?
Well, to be frank, we're in a situation where we need some help.
Sure.
This is a huge deal for our community. And when I went to the university, they said, if this is offered to us, we're going to accept it. And we will find a way to make the finances happen because we believe this community will appreciate this and step forward and help.
Sure.
And that's what we're looking for.
This community does. I've seen it happen, and they support this type of thing. How can businesses and individuals that are tuned in maybe now, how can they be a part of this and help?
A business can call at 218-5276, and we are interested in talking about them sponsoring parts of the exhibit, from sponsoring displays to whole rooms, things of that nature, and their business can welcome people to see these artifacts. Sure. And let our visitors, the thousands of visitors we expect, know that their business helped make this happen. Right. Individuals, in the same way, have several options. They can donate, they can adopt an artifact, where their artifact will have their family name on it, and they're the only family name on the artifact. And they can also purchase a sherd from the site in Israel where a lot of the artifacts come from. Sure. Again, the best way to do that is call 218-5276, or they can email us at exhibit@upike.edu. And if they just want general information, we have a website, www.upike.edu/exhibit.
Very good. And just about out of time, Tommy, but there are other events that are leading up to the 2017 exhibit. Tell us about those.
On April 29th and 30th, a famous biblical archaeologist will be here in Pikeville, Friday and Saturday night doing presentations. They can go to the website again and get tickets for that. Don't want to miss that chance.
Sure. And that takes place where?
That takes place at Booth Auditorium here on campus. And during the day on that Saturday, the library down at Lee Street, the new library by the Burger King, I always tell people where it's at, is going to actually have all the artifacts we have early on display. Right. And Dr. Bryant Wood, the famous archaeologist, will be at the library to greet people that day during the day.
It's a great event, a museum exhibit coming to the University of Pikeville January 2017, and you can be a part. Tommy Chamberlain, UPike Alumni Association President, the man who is making this happen, and I know you've got a lot of help as well, but thanks for all you're doing.
It's my pleasure.
We look forward to it, and we want you to make plans to be there. That's going to do it for this edition of Where the 99 Leads. a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia. Thanks for tuning in.